Good evening and welcome to the July 14th, 2020 meeting of the Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh?
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy. Information on remote access to the meeting was sent via email to the Suburban Trends, Daily Record, and Record newspapers and posted on the Township website.
Excellent, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I
I
pledge
pledge
allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
Amen. Oh, we're getting so much better at that. Okay, well, the clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Phelan?
Here.
Mrs. Russell is absent. Mayor Hurd.
I am here. Okay, Mr. Brewer, will you please review the format of the meeting for the public?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In consideration to the global pandemic that is currently ongoing, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom in an effort to promote the opportunity for public to participate. Throughout the meeting, there will be opportunities for public participation. Anyone wishing to do so should either raise their hand, or if they're experiencing technical difficulties, use the chat function until you are recognized by the chair, Mayor Hurd. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. All right, so we have no presentations. We're going to go to reports from volunteers at this time. If there are any reports or comments from any of the volunteers serving our community, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Mr. Brewer.
There are no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Moving on to public comment. Next on the agenda is public comments. This public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period for public comment is reserved later in the evening. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to address the council, please raise your hand, wait to be recognized, and provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Brewer.
Mr. Mayor, there are no hands raised.
All righty, so we'll be moving on. There'll be a second time for people to comment. Let's see. Next on the agenda is manager's report. Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few items to address. Parks and Recreation, as the restrictions have been relaxed, Parks and Recreation is in full swing. As of today, we have just under 1,200 members of PV Park. For point of reference, last year was a high of about 1,360. So our membership to the park is going well. Significant participation. We've had phenomenal weather, so that has had a positive effect. Camps are in full swing as well. There have been a number of inquiries I've received from other towns of how are you guys doing this, because a lot of camps have been canceled. And one of the benefits that the township has with our recreation camps is they're outdoors. So without the need of buildings and school buildings and things like that, we're able to proceed where others may not be. So we do have full attendance at the Greenview camp, theater camp, field hockey camp, cheer camp, Spot 23 camp at PV Park. Those are all moving forward. Field usage, competitive sports were allowed again, so it was nice to look out my window as I was getting the fridge and see the game being on the baseball diamond in the back and parents cheering, and it was just a nice thing to see, a little reminder of normalcy. Woodland Lake, scheduled for the council's consideration as directed, is an ordinance which clarifies the language within the municipal code about access to Woodland Lake badges, which provide the ability to boat and fish. Those will be, if the council sees fit, restricted to residents only. That's how the ordinance was prepared and directed. For the council's consideration this evening is a resolution authorizing the award of contracts for the Kent Place Sewer Extension Project. Bids came in, we got some good prices. There was a minor issue with the front end that did not, at the front end of the bid specification that did not require the disclosure in investment activities in Iran form. Review of Mr. Oostdijk after some comment from one of the bidders was that that could be resolved prior to award. So that issue has been resolved, and Mr. Oostdijk provides guidance that it is able to be awarded should the council see fit. Mr. Midiga and I have also provided our recommendation to move forward with the award. We have fireworks scheduled as a discussion item. We talked about it a couple meetings ago in an effort to try to figure out when to do fireworks in 2020. So I'll leave that for that point on the agenda. Most, or very significantly, I won't say most significantly, but very significantly, I'm pleased to report to the council as well as to the public that the township was successful in its appeal to the Scientific Resolution Panel of the National Institute of Building Sciences for the preliminary flood information rate maps. It's a lot of acronyms, NIBs and PFIRMs and SRPs, but the bottom line is the maps that had been issued by FEMA, which were flawed, that we had appealed to FEMA, we were dismissed without adequate review. The independent body has ruled that the maps were not up to the necessary standards and need to be revisited. The township has engaged a professional moving forward who will work to map some of the areas that we didn't map, because we're not going to leave this to chance. We're going to provide FEMA with our answer. Perhaps they'll review that and have their consultant review it and agree with us. The process moving forward from here is FEMA needs to issue a letter either accepting or rejecting the SRP's recommendation. Obviously, we hope for and anticipate the former. And then they will have to issue new PFIRMs, which we will have a period of 30 days to review. And then those maps will become final, which is why we're jumping on getting data to them to try to provide them with the accurate data. The Township of Montville and the Borough of Lincoln Park were also successful. But I just want to take time and compliment the flood resilience officer, the professionals involved in the process. It was essentially a court hearing where we need to put on a case, and a great job was done by all. And hopefully we can get the residents out of the floodplain and the floodway that shouldn't be out, and leave those residents who were removed from the floodplain and the floodway out in the maps that were actually improved. So that was a significant thing, as we've been talking about for years. Lastly, we opened solid waste and recycling collection bids. These on June 30th. These contracts expire on October 31st. We were fearful of massive increases because of our recycling approach. And if we decide to change our approach, we can mitigate those impacts. We're not yet ready for a full-blown discussion. I'm awaiting a proposal from the Morris County Municipal Utilities Authority, and I expect to have a full presentation to the council on the 28th of July so that we can review those options. I'll also present what potential impact on the rates those options will result in if exercised, and direction can be given, and we can wrap this up in good time and effort. Unless there's any questions on anything I've reported on or anything else, that's my report.
It's exciting news about our case against FEMA. I think our residents will be very happy to hear this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I had one thing for you, Adam. You said some of the other towns around us were successful as well. Was the process the same, meaning when you said that the Scientific Resolution Panel's decision was that the maps were not up to par and they have to kind of go back to the drawing board? Is that what the other ones, what comes out of this? That's what happened, like in Montville?
Yes, well, there were some additional comments in the report for the Township of Pequannock that were not in the Montville and Lincoln Park report, and that was the SRP really took FEMA to task over the lack of community engagement. At points, they said their effort was disingenuous at best. They were very there was strong language for a body like that, but the technical issues were very similar in terms of their determination between the two towns. If the council recalls, we had a brief discussion about going it alone, not with Lincoln Park and Montville, because our issues were a little different.
Yes.
And now we've circled back and we're working with those communities and the professionals to come up with the best argument moving forward. And I'd like to thank Lincoln Park because there was significant modeling done to provide the answer on the east and west ditch. And Lincoln Park has said, you know, the township of Pequannock is free to use that without any cost. It's all good to help the residents in the community. So there's a good collegial effort. Unfortunately, Pompton Lakes, their submission for a scientific resolution panel was denied.
Oof.
We're not really sure why that happened. Lincoln, Montville, and Pequannock were successful, whereas Pompton Lakes was not. So they're moving in the direction of a letter of map revision, which is something that we would have to consider if FEMA went the wrong direction with us.
Yeah, what I find interesting too, though, is now FEMA can decide to reject the recommendation. Do we know what they did with the other towns, or are they all still waiting as well?
They're working through a process. 44 CFR, which is the Code of Federal Regulations that guides all this stuff, provides for a reasonable time period for them to get back to us, which is shown to be 90 days in a graph.
Okay.
Preliminary discussions, because we've reached out to them. Our goal is to sit down and work together to collaboratively come up with the right answer.
Yeah.
And thus far, FEMA has been more receptive than they were in the initial appeal.
Good. That's what I was after, is trying to find out if they're going to be receptive or more, or take the approach like, well, we're not wrong, you know. So
Is
I-
there
I
a
hope
chance?
they take it.
Is there a chance that we'll just go back to the old map?
I don't think so. I think with all the new mapping,
Where the street was in the flood and edges of properties were in the flood, but nothing touched the houses.
I think no matter what the outcome is, we're going to have new maps that are different than the old maps.
So it's going to be somewhere between the original maps and the new maps.
Right. And our goal is that it's representative of what actually happens. And, you know, during the SRP process, the SRP members actually asked the FEMA representatives, did you go out and talk to the residents? Did you ask where the water got to? And his response was, no, we didn't do that.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to remind the residents who think that they're in the flood zone or floodplain to get their actual home mapped to see what their base flood elevation is. And that way they can pay the least amount of insurance regardless of which way this turns out. So, all right, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Public hearings.
Sure.
We don't have any public hearings, so we're going to ordinances for introduction. Ms. March. Ms. Marsh, you're on mute.
I was so
There we go.
here. Ordinance number 2020-09, an ordinance amending chapter 129 of the Code of the Township of Pequannock and clarifying badge availability for residents only at Woodland Lake.
Okay, Mr. Brewer, are there any comments?
As indicated in my report, the council provided direction previously to clarify the code, which kind of had it both ways, that the access for fishing and boating should be restricted to residents only, which is what the badges are used to control.
Okay, are there any comments for council? No, this is exactly what we spoke about last time. So if there's no comments, can I get a motion to introduce the ordinance at first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Florence Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Phelan,
Yes,
Mayor Hurd.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is resolutions. Ms. Marsh.
Beginning with Resolution R 2020-146, authorizing tax office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. 2020-147, awarding a contract for the Kent Place Sanitary Sewer Extension Project to Mesricola Excavating Incorporated for the total contract amount of $91,180 in accordance with their bid specifications. R 2020-148, approving submission of a 2021 New Jersey Department of Transportation Municipal Aid grant application and authorizing execution of a grant contract for the West Parkway North Improvements Project. R 2020-149, canceling unexpended general capital appropriation balances. 2020-150, appointing a planning board class 4 member. 2020-151, appointing members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. 2020-152, appointing members of the Historic District Commission. R 2020-153, approving payments of the itemized claims as set forth on the July 20th, 2020 bill list and 2016 FEMA elevation escrow list. And R 2020-154, appointing members of the Open Space Advisory Committee. That was Melissa Dolinsky.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments on the resolutions from council?
No.
All right, I just have a quick question on R 2020-147. There was a really wide spread of bids. Why so wide? Any clue?
Oftentimes with projects like this, it depends on how hungry a contractor may be.
Okay,
They could have a different interpretation of what work is included. They may be busier and therefore it's only worth their while at a certain price. But
Okay.
the contractor who was the lowest responsible bidder was vetted by the engineer and his recommendation is to award.
okay, excellent, thank you. All right, so if there's no comments, is there a motion to adopt these new resolutions?
I guess I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Dave.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions 2020-146 through 2020-154.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Florence Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Phelan,
Yes.
Mayor Hurd.
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is fireworks. All right, so what do you guys think?
Well,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to lead and frame based upon what's in my report. So, you know,
Okay.
we couldn't have the fireworks in June based upon the executive orders and restrictions that were in place at the time. The fireworks companies being very flexible and reasonable for vendor, so that's very much appreciated. We had some discussion at a prior meeting and some ideas were thrown out there in addition to anything the council would like to see. One thing I want to note is we haven't approached the Board of Education yet because we don't actually have a date yet. So that's one caveat I just want to throw out there, that this would be subject to their approval because of the use of their facilities. So within the list of ideas that are there for a potential weekend prior to Labor Day, the weekend after Labor Day, the hoedown, a member of the public previously recommended New Year's Eve, as I think was done in Y2K, or anything again the council would like to see fit. If there are concerns with having the fireworks or we can't come to a landing, I also just want to note that the vendor has said that the deposit can be carried into 2021 without penalty. So, you know, we basically have all the options before us, and whatever the council chooses to do, we can make happen.
you know, after thinking about this from last meeting and talking to some people, I think Dave had originally suggested the hoedown. And after talking to a lot of people, I think that makes the most sense in my mind. I just wondered what everybody else thought, if they came up with other things, but that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, well, actually one question. So all of the dates that we have on our list here have been confirmed from the vendor, right? So these are dates the vendors can actually do?
Correct. Yeah, Labor Day is out. That's not an option for us, but those are dates that are all available.
I have to agree with Melissa. I'm kind of levitating towards the hoedown as my first pick.
Works for me.
Okay, Rich, what do you think?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess as long as we can have it for the fields through the schools, then ask them if Saturday, October 7th. Now, will we get a second day of Sunday, the 18th, just in case?
Well, yeah, we'll have a rain date as we always do.
Okay.
So I'll reach out to the school district. I know they're going crazy putting their plans together, but I'll work with them on this, and then I'll circle back to the council, let you know if there's any thoughts or concerns. Otherwise, I appreciate the direction.
Yeah, I believe the rain date for the hoedown is the next day. So see if they're available the next day for the rain date.
And it would still, I mean, in a perfect world, it's still going to be by the high school where we always do it, right? It's not going to be over by Greenview Park.
Correct. Yeah, when sighting fireworks is not an easy thing to do. I know Mr. Phelan from his firematic experience can talk about it, but structures, trees, wind, there's a whole bunch of things they evaluate before you put things places, and the conditions are monitored closely, so moving them would be a challenge.
Basically, the best place in Pequannock is always at the high school.
Right. Access, egress, and open space.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, next on the agenda is reports and notices. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Mr. Brewer, would you like to elaborate really quick?
Yeah, the township had both a note sale, which is a short-term debt sale, and a bond sale, which is a long-term debt sale. The bond sale is awarded on true interest cost. The note sale is awarded based upon net interest cost. So both were affected. We had several bidders in each case. Got some pretty good amounts. True interest cost for the bonds, 2.21%. And then the net interest cost for the notes is 0.483%. It's a little misleading. That figure is derived by taking the actual interest paid, which is going to be 2%, and then reducing the premium, which was offered by the lowest bidder, which was $85,000 and change. But in either case, both went well, and as required by statute, the finance officer must report that to council. So those are those reports.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay.
No.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Council reports and announcements. Councilwoman Florence Lynch.
Yes. Just a couple of quick things. The flood committee did meet. I don't think there's anything new as far as the home elevation projects since I reported last time. I just know that FEMA's been releasing the funds, the projects are moving along. And then on the 2019 elevation grant application, we know that FEMA approved that application as well, but they were still awaiting the funding, the congressional funding. I did want to ask, we already talked about the map appeals, so no need to go into that more. The de-snagging project on the Hampton River, I believe that's going to be starting in August. That has not started yet, correct?
We open bids for that tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll review the bids, assuming everything works. Yeah, the goal will be have that underway in August. And, you know, if the rivers can stay low, it'll make it a lot easier and more effective.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain the other day. Wow. Yeah. But, okay. So our next flood meeting is August 11th. And then as far as economic development, the Economic Development Committee, I know they haven't met lately, but I do believe the chair met with Mr. Brewer recently to kind of get back on track. I believe they're going to meet in July. I will just have to double check that with the chair, but I don't know if you want to elaborate on anything that came out of that meeting with the chair, just that they were going to start having regular meetings again, right?
Yeah, they were going to start having regular meetings. Mr. Sullivan wanted to review, you know, the master plan, the ordinances, where we were with respect to that.
Right.
He was interested in putting some things up on the township's website, so we went over that in a quick tutorial. I gave him access to be able to post to that. So it was really just to catch up. I think he and I are probably going to schedule something every 4 to 6 weeks just to touch base, because there were some things that he hadn't been aware of that were a positive move, and it was good just to have that conversation.
Good, good. So next meeting on economic is July 22nd. I will make sure I follow up with him this week to see if he plans on holding that meeting. And we'll take it from there. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
All
So
right.
thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cole?
I just want to say, you know, that I attended the PV school graduation and the high school graduation. I was very happy that the Board of Ed did that. Definitely something I think the kids all look forward to.
Yeah,
Other than that, I really don't have anything. I haven't heard if any of my committees will be meeting during July. First Aid Squad has not had a regular meeting. They just have executive board meetings, and no scheduled meeting yet for fair housing. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Dave, I just wanted to jump in and echo what Dave said. I also attended the graduations for both middle school and high school, and I just thought they did a tremendous job, you know, with what they had to do. It was just well organized. It was a beautiful night for both of them. So, you know, they ended up having great weather. And it was just a joy to finally get out and see all of the graduates. And I think they really appreciated what everyone did. So that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, Councilman Phelan.
I don't really have anything other than Company 2 may be bringing something to the town manager very shortly about unfair borders. Well, let's wait and see what happens with that whole thing, but that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I am going to echo what Melissa and Dave said about PV and PTHS. It was a great graduation. It was nice to see everybody out there. It was nice to see all the kids out there. They definitely enjoyed it. We had 2 beautiful nights, which definitely helped as well. And I want to echo the great job that the superintendent, Mike Portis, I know it's his his first year, as well as his staff and everybody else. All the teachers came together, all the principals came together, and they did a great job. So kudos to them. What else do I have? I have Arbor Day Foundation. I got a letter stating that Pequannock Township was named a 2019 Tree City USA by Arbor Day Foundation, which is great. This isn't the first time. Hopefully it's not the last time. So I'm very proud of Pequannock. I also got a letter from Pequannock Valley Rotary. I know Adam got one too a couple of weeks ago, but it's they're honored to invite me to be a civil service member of the Pequannock Valley Rotary. I will be stopping there this Wednesday. I really do thank them. So that was great. And of course, again, the Township High School, can't really see it, but it was great. Kudos to everybody and a lot of awards. So a lot of smart people out there. That is all I have. So.
Hey, Ryan, can I bring
Yes.
something up?
Sure,
Something
go for it.
something I forgot to mention. I believe it's on the Pequannock website now, or it's going to be on the Pequannock website, but we all got that email about the public meeting for the county freeholders for the bike path and the pedestrian walk. So I think that's really important to just let people know if they're really interested in getting that update. It's so many years coming now.
Yeah.
They should look that up and register. I think you have to register for the meeting because I guess it's a Zoom meeting, right?
It's a Zoom meeting. I did post it on Facebook. I know Tom and Drea also blasted it out. So if you guys can put it out too, that'd be great.
Yeah, and that date.
It is on the front page of the website, and I believe
it's
posted on a number of Facebook pages.
Yeah, that's right. You did send the email out. So
Great, wonderful, thanks.
you're welcome. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Again, if anyone wishes to address the council, please raise your hand, wait to be recognized, and provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Brewer.
Mayor, I'll just give it another 10 seconds as it is the second public comment period for the meeting.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, no hands are raised.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Next on the agenda is minutes for approval. This is a June 23rd, 2020 minutes. Does council have any questions?
No.
Comments? Nothing? Okay, is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 23rd.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. Next on the agenda is closed session. Mr. Uzdike, will you please explain the procedure for holding the closed session?
Sure. Our procedure with Zoom meetings for closed session is not really all that different than when we have live meetings. The members of the public are not permitted to attend our closed sessions because these are matters that the state, through state statute, has determined are confidential matters that the public should be excluded from. Like a regular meeting, when we are done with executive session, we will come back into an open public session. I will say right at the outset for any members of the public listening, there will be no action taken following this closed session other than a motion to adjourn, which always takes place in open session. So, but the public is free to hang around. They will be allowed back into the meeting after the executive session is completed, should they wish to do that. And with that, our executive session meeting tonight is a discussion on the litigation JAC Automotive versus the Township of Pequannock, which is a sewer assessment appeal. And we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss that matter.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And just so everybody knows, that is Resolution R 2020-155, authorizing the Township Council to meet in executive session to discuss litigation of the JAC Automotive Sewer Assessment. All right.
I will
There we
be
go.
moving the folks from the public portion at this time. I am, Ms. Marsh is as well.
All right, we are back in public session. This is Mr. Uzdike.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight in executive session, the council was updated on the matter of JAC Automotive LLC versus Township of Pequannock, which is a sewer assessment appeal. The council discussed the proposed settlement agreement and agreed that the settlement should be entered into on behalf of the township. So we will enter into that, subject, of course, to the formal resolution, which we'll have on for the next meeting. That's it tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. There being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, meeting adjourned at 7:38 and 20 seconds.
Everybody have a great night.
County meeting tonight.
Yeah, have a great
Nice
night,
seeing
everyone.
you, Rich.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Nice seeing everybody. Bye. Don't forget your other meeting.